But I don't think that makes it go like, oh, this is a terrible movie.
Took it from a 9 to a 5.5.
That's
No,
crazy.
I'm kidding.
Uh,
I was so pissed though.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of A Lost Plot, the podcast by storytellers for storytellers so that we can tell better stories ourselves. As always, I'm your host, Maverick, and today we have back with us our co-host, Andrew, to review the 1999 science fiction action film. That's right, we're going back to a classic in the film history, The Matrix, written and directed by the Wachowskis. This is a film everyone knows, at least in the common parlance of culture, just because of how much it has influenced society, even in the ways that people talk about being things such as red pilled. We're talking about that today. So, Andrew, you want to give everyone your initial impressions and rating for The Matrix?
It was cool to finally see this film for the first time. Hadn't seen it before. Until the end. And then I went, wow. We can be done now. I don't want to keep watching. That said, it did get a 5.5. So,
Okay. So, not overzealous praise, but you still enjoyed it at least. Would you say this is something you'd be willing or enjoy rewatching to some degree? At a rating like that?
probably not. Like, I probably, if someone wanted to watch it, I wouldn't like put up a fight, but it wouldn't be like something I would go, oh yeah, well, I want to rewatch that.
Yeah, I
It's
see.
not in the category of they'd say I would start complaining about watching it though, if that makes sense.
All right, there you go. Yeah, and as something that's in common society, it is interesting to see other people's takes on it, especially from it being out for, 27 years at this point versus when it first came out, how it was appreciated. I know it's something that I watched growing up. I appreciated it a lot because of that, and I still enjoy watching it today. I can see a lot of the aspects of how it was created, especially seeing where it came from, bleeding into it and giving it an extra texture that I didn't realize it had. For example, you see things like the martial arts scenes and things like that, and you can see how the Wachowskis were incredibly influenced by anime and martial arts in creation of this film, and so there's a heavy degree of that you can see bleeding into that. And now you see anime as a big cultural aspect of what Americans are now willing to watch, which wasn't necessarily a thing in the past. You also see other ideas, such as Plato's Cave, the Telnet hacker communities, and things like that are also deep influences for this that came together into a sci-fi film that I think has not necessarily more relevance, but has unique relevance today, just because it's talking about extreme potential dangers of AI. So, do we think those are going to actually come about? I don't think so, but it's at least an interesting exploration down that path. I still think it's interesting to watch, which is why I gave it a 6.9. But we'll get into those ratings today. So, what was it, a 5.5 you said? There you go. So not too crazy different. I mean, it's a solid difference here that we got going on. We'll talk about why that's the case. But before we do, everyone wants to at least first know what we're talking about. So in case you've been under a rock somewhere and you don't know what the Matrix is about, Andrew, you want to give everyone a summary of the Matrix.
Sure. You start out with the character of Neo. He is going about his life in the world, or so you think. You very quickly realize this is not the world that you thought it was. This is the Matrix. And now he needs to break free of it through the help of, I'm forgetting the black guy's
Trinity.
name.
Oh, Morpheus.
Morpheus. I always confuse it with Morbius, and I know that's wrong. Um, he breaks free, and the movie follows his journey as he discovers that he is this very special person within the Matrix, and that none of the rules apply to him. And he has to get back against the AI overlords that have taken control of the human race and put them all in the Matrix to use them as living batteries. I feel like much more than that isn't needed, considering how well known this film is at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. And a lot more of it has to do beyond that basic premise with the nuances of the plot itself, and then also with anything beyond that starts to get into potentially what happens in the future films. And we're going to save those for another day. For now, we're going to talk about number one, The Matrix, coming out in 1999. So we'll start off as we always do, right? We talk about this character first. You start off with, before you even get introduced to Neo, I should say, you get start off with this character of Trinity, how she's fighting off these agents and then escapes in this desperate attempt to reach a call box or a toll booth before she then mysteriously disappears, which sets the stage for a world that seems to have some rules that are being broken, even though it looks like the world that we could live in. Then it cuts to this character of Neo, also known as Thomas Anderson, a normal guy who has a hacker lifestyle by night and a normal everyday job by day. And he's starting to go about his life with this question as he's interacting with these mysterious, nefarious characters connected to Morpheus, trying to figure out what is the Matrix. What are your thoughts on the introduction of this character of Neo? Do you think he's compelling? Do you think he's interesting? What are your thoughts on him?
I had some difficulty in filling out the questionnaire about about this movie in general. Um, One of the things is like you get certain things almost like out of place, if that makes sense. With Neo, I feel like his real struggle, I guess, is his lack of belief, if that makes sense. Like
Sure.
he's just unwilling to believe the notion that the world he's been living in is completely fake. And you get that with his first interaction with with Morpheus and with Trinity, and he kind of, you get the sense that he's questioning the existence of some of these things, but he isn't fully committed to the idea that everything is fake. It's more like he's questioning what could be out there, what does the Matrix mean? Like he's like scratching the surface, but it like goes way deeper than he thinks it does. So his journey is like more of one of discovery throughout this film, um, than transformation, I guess. I think that by the end of the film, when he turns into like crazy ninja warrior and all that, is where I begin to lose interest. But I guess you could argue that at that point he goes through a transformation too, and that he's like fully accepting his role as this savior within the Matrix.
Yeah, I mean that's a broad brushstroke summary of a lot of things that happen in the film for sure. But I mean, to start it off, you get this idea of this character who's is very reluctant to believe these things. He's a questioning individual, right? And so there's a certain aspect in which if you were to take this film and cut it into the stereotypical three-act scenery that you get with a lot of films, the point where he becomes truly invested in this film and everything that's going on happens when he escapes the Matrix, right? When he's dumped out of his pod and he gets freed by the people who are in the real world, and he sees the world with true eyes, if you will, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that happens pretty like late-ish in the film, probably a good third of the way through at least, where he finally gets to see what the world truly is. And there is some like, if you're talking about like an extended opener, right? We talked about this, for example, in Back to the Future 2, right? They take a really long time to get to a part where everyone's actually engaged in the true plot of the film. You could make the argument that that's what happens here. I think the way that this gets saved in the case that it's not really quite like that is because from the start you're still getting the same themes and struggles throughout the rest of the film, right? And so while they change from that point forward, excuse me, not Matrix, where Neo comes to the realization that this world he's been living in is a lie. It's not true. It's not real. It's not what he thought was true, what he tactily felt, touched, tasted, heard, etc., is not true. It's something that he has been led to believe through his mind by these machines that have been feeding him this is a questioning aspect that he gets from the start, right? And you get that from the first question, right? When he's talking to Trinity in the club, and they're talking together, and she says, "You're asking the question that all of us asks," and he then whispers, "What is the Matrix?" Right? His questioning is fundamental to who he is from the start, and so you get a unique character from that. You get someone who's not just sitting there saying, "Okay, I'm going to accept this challenge and go off into this adventure and fight this journey," right? Or you don't get this sudden shift where he goes, "You know what? This terrible thing happens," right? You get with Gladiator, for example, where he goes, "My wife and my kids have died, and I now need to rise up," more or less. You get more of a struggle that develops as he comes to the realization that things are false, and this question of, well, what is true? What should I do now that I know what is true? And the implications of that. And so it flows, it changes, but it still stems from that same basis of questioning. Does that make sense? That at least that's how I see it.
Yeah.
And do you
I
think that,
don't know
like,
if you're looking for something else
no,
there.
I guess what I'm going along with that is, like, do you think that that type of character is inherently worse, inherently better? Like, it's definitely different than what you see in a normal character dynamic in a film. And so do you think that that was played out well?
I feel like it was done well enough. It's not like the type of character that I sit back and go, "Oh, I really like this type of character." But I do like I understand what they're going for. And I also think this film is unique in that the whole film is meant to be like an analogy, if you will. And like the themes are very, very heavy. And so I think they do more than enough work on the character side to make the story still compelling while also keeping the themes very relevant.
Yeah, sure. No, I think that that's at least a fair statement to make with it. And for sure, the themes are where it goes throughout this whole, not even just this film, but like moving forward into everything else. There is further implications, and those are explored by other characters as well. We'll get to those, but in regards to Neo, for sure, you get this idea of someone who's struggling to figure out what he even wants in this, and there you get that from early scenes where he knows, okay, he gets these mysterious calls from Morpheus, and Morpheus says, "Hey, you're about to get arrested. You need to go this way in order to not get caught that way, in order to escape being seen, etc., etc." Until he's at the edge of a building, and he says you have to go around the edge of the building and walk, climb down the scaffolding in order to escape. And he's freaking out. He's like, "I'm just a normal dude living my life, working at this company. I can't climb along the edge of this. I'm going to die." And so he does what a normal, reasonable person would do and goes, "I'm not going to kill myself for this. I'm just going to turn myself in." And he gets turned in. He gets taken out by the agents, who then proceed to question him. And so you get this constant, like, questioning and pushing back to what is reasonable. And so it takes a much longer time for him to come to the conclusion that, okay, this is the correct path for me to reject the Matrix and to join this crew. And I mean, I personally like that. I think that the way that that goes about means that you have a much deeper development of ideas and characters around someone who has to struggle fully with each of the implications for that. That being said, I will admit that it's not necessarily the strongest way to, say, combine conflict per se. You have to combine conflict in different ways. It's not as easy to have that hard hitting, for example, war between two parties right from the start, or like massive battles and things like that. It's much harder to get to that in a situation where you have an individual that you're focusing on, that you're developing their thought process, that you're making them struggle through that thought process and come to a rational, reasonable conclusion given the scenario. So that being said, I enjoy the character. I like him a lot. I can see how other people don't appreciate it, but I think that it's good for the story they were trying to tell, and I think they did it well. with that in mind, I think we've already talked a little bit about the themes. What are your thoughts on the themes of this film before we get too much deeper into it? Because it has implications for what you talked about, the transformation for the character, who he becomes, what it means for the ending, things like that. What are your thoughts on the messages of this film, the themes they're trying to develop, and all of that stuff?
I mean, I think the themes are pretty clearly about this idea of social conditioning and like taking off the rose-colored glasses, or rather putting on the glasses to allow you to see clearly, if you will. It's where you get the idea of someone being red pilled versus blue pilled. Um,
Take the red pill and take the blue pill.
yeah, I think
See how deep their rabbit hole goes.
one of the reasons I did not enjoy this movie as much towards the end is I felt like the themes kind of got left in the dust a little bit. And what I mean by that is, right, the whole film is building up like we're not going to give you like power per se. We're just going to give you answers. Um, I was half expecting like him to get the answers he wanted, and the answers would just create more problems, right? Because just simply knowing the truth doesn't mean that you are going to be victorious, if that makes sense. But it felt like as soon as Neo fully accepted his role and realized the truth, it meant he was superpowered, which is where I feel like the analogy falls off a little bit. And then you get the whole thing with Trinity kissing him, and it's just like, oh, true love's kiss will wake you from the spell. And that one really pissed me off. I was like, okay, well, what in the Disney Princess Ah movie are we watching? Um, but I think the themes are good. And I think also the way that they portray Neo in relation to those themes, with like him just being so stuck in his current mindset that he's almost completely unwilling to believe that this could be fake. Um, is done pretty well. At least up until the end, for me, anyways.
Yeah, well, and I wonder where you peg the full development of the themes, right? Because in my mind, the themes go from this idea of what is true, like what is real, what is fake, and there's a large development and discussion of that to the point where he now knows the truth, and then there's a further implication of that as, okay, now that you know the truth, what are you going to do about it? And even in that point, you see this implication around how Neo acts, that he thinks that he's a bystander in some ways. Sure, he might be somewhat involved, but he's in some ways being carried along in this grand battle between humanity and the technology as they fight, and he's more or less kind of wanting to be on the sidelines. He doesn't want to be in the main fray, and everyone else is
Mm-hmm.
telling him, no, you are supposed to be front and center, you need to be part of this fight, and you need to be like the one spearheading it. And he goes, I don't think so. You all are more important than I am, to the degree that he goes and basically says, I'm going to more or less just save you because you're more important to this than I am. And that leads to the further conclusion of this film. But I think that the point I'm saying is that by the end of the film, he comes to the conclusion that he does need to be involved, and that he has to fully, now that he has this knowledge, he needs to do something about it. And that's where you get to those final fights with Agent Smith, and the termination of that at the very end, where he ends up fighting all of the agents and is able to basically manipulate the Matrix to his own desires or own whims, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's an accurate representation of what the film's trying to convey? Do you think that there's other themes it's trying to convey as well?
And I think those are the main themes. I was kind of just reading it as that. Um, maybe I just wasn't looking for other themes. If you're thinking of others, I mean, I know I've talked to some people who like really think that the Matrix is like this great allegory for like Christianity, and Neo being like the chosen one, and Trinity is like the Holy Spirit or something. And I didn't quite see it in this film, I'm gonna be honest. Um, so that's my take in terms of themes. Um,
Sure. And
I think
yeah, go ahead.
I think the thing for me is like I just didn't like that him realizing the truth is what made him super powered. I don't I don't know that I dislike the idea of him becoming stronger as a result of the truth, but I find it incredibly unrealistic if it's trying to be this allegory for like you as a person living in society being convinced this is the way things are and then taking off the rose-colored glasses and fully accepting that society is different and all of a sudden becoming like all that much more powerful for it. I don't know. It felt too clean for the analogy they were going for in my mind. Um
Sure.
so
And I will say, as much as they go through and develop these ideas fairly well, it's not like this film is incredibly complex in regards to the messages it's trying to convey per se, right? And
yeah.
we can get to the side characters as an example later on, but I would make the argument that all of the other side characters are around the same theme about what it means to know the truth and to believe the truth versus or rejecting the truth. And so this idea that you have knowledge being a primary idea in this film and it catalyzes everything going forward is definitely just like front and center, and nothing else really takes the frame. And so, at the end of the day, you can boil it down pretty simply for that reason, because it's not like they're trying to have, this person represents this and then this side character represents this other kind of interesting related idea, and et cetera, which sometimes you have in
Yeah.
these more complex films. So I think that, yeah, for sure, I can see why you would say that it's simple in some ways, but I don't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing or that detracts from the movie in any specific way.
Well, I don't know that it was simple in terms of the end. I think that I don't like the way that they concluded the arc of Neo realizing the truth of the Matrix.
Sure. And like maybe to bring it back down to one of its inspiring pieces, right? In some ways, it was inspired by Plato's cave, right? The idea that you have, and for those who are not aware of Plato's cave, the idea is that people are chained to a wall and all they can see is these shadows dancing basically against the wall, and that's their only interpretation of what things mean, right? You see a shadow of a grape. That's your understanding of a grape until you end up, getting yourself unchained and turning around. You can actually see the grape, right? And so the idea is like there is difference in understanding and difference in how you act based on the knowledge right? And so the idea is like, do you then climb out of the cave and see the real world, which would have broader implications for how you then act, what you see, how you live, than even just looking behind you and seeing what else is actually in the cave versus the shadow, things like that. So that's kind of what I think the implications of the film were going for in regards to not just do you live in the Matrix, the Matrix is alive, but how could you then manipulate the Matrix if you were to like fully engage in it, right, with that understanding rather than just
Mhm.
accepting the Matrix as it is. Sure, I think that like the further development of that goes more into the prophecy per se of like, okay, he is the chosen one, and the chosen one
Yeah.
has the ability to do something that we have seen in the past. And I think maybe that's where you're getting some discrepancy, maybe if you will, where it's like the idea that the chosen one would just suddenly turn a switch and be able to then have these powers they didn't have previously just feels unbelievable to you. Is that where you're coming from?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a better way of looking at it. Like, I don't see him never getting the powers that he does by the end of the film. I just felt like he got them way too easily. And they came as a result of him learning, like, accepting reality. And I feel like there needed to be a little more of a road bump there, I guess, or a bump in the road.
Sure. And what do you think that would have done per se to help the film?
I mean, I personally don't know that the film needed to end with him being victorious over the machines per se. I think it would have been totally satisfactory for the movie to end with him accepting the reality of the world he lived in and like joining in this fight, because it's still a complete arc for him, and that he has gone from someone who lived in the Matrix to someone who lives outside of it now, both physically and mentally by the end of the film. And I think that his journey to realizing how to like manipulate the Matrix could have been a whole nother arc altogether.
You mean like an additional plot or like a sequel, for example?
Yeah, I mean, clearly they made more films, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm talking like even outside the knowledge that they were going to, I think just focusing in on him going from someone who lives in the Matrix physically, mentally, emotionally, everything, to someone who's outside of it is a complete arc that they could have just hyper focused in on that, and that would have been a satisfactory film. But it also is representative of like a lot of people who go through like this, as they would describe themselves, like the taking off of the rose-colored glasses. Like what you do with that information afterwards is a whole nother story than just you coming to the realization that everything you thought was true is a lie. And like that is a whole struggle on its own. And oftentimes when you do realize that everything you were living was a lie, your life like kind of gets worse for a bit there, because now you're like, well, what do I do with this? Like now I have to rethink a lot more than just this one small aspect of my life, if that makes sense.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, side tangent. I will say he has not watched Matrix 2 or Matrix 3, so we'll have to put a pin in a couple of these things that are going on here. But you're not. I don't know that you're entirely wrong, right? I think that given the foresight that I have about where the plot goes, I mean, I can't say a ton, but I will say that like I think that I kind of see where you're coming from. I think that it's like because they are in some ways, well, like I said previously, they're taking this implication that he comes from one world and realizes it's a lie. And this idea of like what you do with it is a broader question. It's a big question. And in some ways, it's like you're trying to take a singular question of, is this real or is this fake? Which is already like a meaty question to answer, and then answer that, and then go from there and go, okay, what are the implications of you knowing that something's a lie and what should you do about it? Which is, you could go in all different directions with that, right?
Yeah.
And trying to answer that in a singular film is rather hard to do. The truth is, they don't fully answer where that goes in this film, but they take a very decent stab at it in the degree that this film was made to the sense that if there was no other film made, the film would still be complete, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, maybe that's where you're getting some of that unsatisfactory feel on your sense.
Yeah.
I think the broader populace still got like you still get a satisfactory conclusion to the film as a whole, but like maybe there's some lacking in regards to that ending bit where you feel like it was a little fast for what you wanted. Is that what I'm getting here?
It was a little fast, but it was also it was almost too epic, if that makes sense. Like it was like for everything that's been building up, it was just like it felt like something a younger kid would have written, where they're like, and then the hero unlocks his true potential, like the Ninjago people, and now he is all powerful and can fight off the villains.
Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this guy likes anime.
Yeah, I like Attack on Titan and
JJK.
Yeah, and JJK has goated fight scenes. These fight scenes were not goated.
Okay, so here's the thing: like these are actually inspired by anime. I think that, and I think actually that probably speaks to more of what you're seeing. Is like there is some sort of cultural acceptance that once you accept the genre of anime, that you accept that anime is going to do these things, like these ridiculous fight scenes where people are just, I'm going to punch you 5,000 times in the face and you're going to live, and then you're going to punch me 8,000 times in the face and I will live. Like once you accept that premise, you can just see whatever ridiculous fight scene you want to see and it's going to be crazy, right? And then they take that and put it into a modern film. if you haven't accepted that premise in like Americanized films, it's going to look really weird. So I guess I can kind of see where you're coming from. I don't think it's that much of a stretch to just accept the premise and say it is what it is, but
But Maverick
sure.
getting Attack on Titan doesn't do that.
You're forgetting, Andrew. That wasn't the only example.
It's the only
I
one
know
that
you like Code
matters.
Geass.
Do they do that in Code Geass? I don't know. I haven't seen it in a while.
Anyways, the point being is that like I do think there is some sort of cultural difference coming to that specific critique, but we could get caught up in those details too much. Point is, this is the character we get of Neo, right? He has this real struggle of what he's going through, and there's these other characters that help him to more or less push forward through them, if you will. And you get that especially with the character of Morpheus. What are your thoughts on Morpheus in this film? Do you think he's a compelling, almost like mentorish figure in this film?
I was almost getting like Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan, but to a lesser degree, because I don't I don't really get any semblance of connection between Morpheus and Neo, aside from Morpheus being like, "You're the chosen one," and Neo going, "What?" Like, and then once Morpheus is like taken prisoner, like Neo gets all upset about it, but we're not really given any instance in which there's like a real human connection between the two of them. At least not one that I got while I was watching. It was more like Morpheus was just like, "This world you've been living in is false. You are the chosen one. I must train you to be the chosen one and do chosen one things and sacrifice my life for you." And Neo's like, "No."
I mean, I think some of that comes from. I think it was viable, and the reason I think it's viable is because of the paradigm that Neo comes from, and Neo comes from this paradigm of everything that he believed to be true is now a lie. And so what does he have to cling to? And the only people he has really to cling to are the people who are around him, who have been taking care of him in the past basically couple of days or weeks where he's been released from the Matrix. And that includes Morpheus, who's been trying to teach him and mentor him and show him the truth, right? He is the epitome of enlightenment, if you will, where he is committed to this idea that the Matrix is false and we need to bring that to light so that people will reject the Matrix and join humanity in this fight against the machines. And that's what you get from him. And he is, I think there's also a sense in which there is some level of charisma that comes from this undying belief, which is part of what he adds to the film, is this character who is so committed to this idea that he believes the machines must be destroyed and they must be stopped. And he also believes in this prophecy of the chosen one. And he also believes that the Oracle, what she told him was true, is that he will find the chosen one and he will help the chosen one escape the Matrix. Because he believes that Neo is that one, he is committed without any shadow of a doubt to making that happen. He will do everything in his power to build Neo up, to make him the strong man who can then fight the enemy. And so there's a certain sense in which I think those two things combined help to build, even if Neo, in his moment of doubt, is going, "I don't think I'm the chosen one. I don't think I'm the one who's here to stop the enemy." He still has some inkling of like, this person believes in me more than I believe in myself. And when I have nothing else that seems real in the world, this person should live more than I should. And that like drives him going forward into the middle of the film. That's my impression of him. Do you think that that's unfair?
I don't know that it's unfair. I just think the him being a because you asked, do I buy him being a mentor type figure is where I probably would say no. I could still get behind like Neo wanting to save him for the reasons you listed. I just don't think they function very well as like a mentor-mentee situation, if that makes sense.
Okay. I mean, all right. I mean, I guess that's somewhat splitting hairs here. I mean, he literally does train him, but sure. I think
Well,
that,
yes,
and
but
even in a
yeah.
broader perspective, like whether or not you think he's specifically a mentor figure following that paradigm, do you think that Morpheus as a character in the film, do you think he's compelling? Do you think what he stands for adds value to the film in the
I
screen time he has?
I like Morpheus's character probably more than I like Neo in terms of his arc and what drives him. And that's because Morpheus is someone on the outside looking in, and it's like he lives in a world that is so unbelievably bleak and hopeless, and he can't even fight back because everybody he would have fight with him to push back against this tyranny doesn't even believe that they're enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if he does not have this prophecy to look forward to, then what does he have? He has like no hope outside of it. And so it's almost like he believes in this prophecy out of necessity. It's like something that just keeps him going. Um so yeah, I like Morpheus's character.
Yeah. Cool. No, I'd agree. I think that it's interesting. Once again, he's not like super nuanced, if you will, as a character, but it is
Yeah.
something. It's really interesting to see this character who has this one thing that they're going for, and they are so committed to that one thing that they will do whatever it takes to make that happen. And anytime someone else, I even think they say this in the film. I can't recall the exact scene, but it's more or less. I believe it was Trinity that was talking to him, and she's like, "You really think he's the one?" And he's basically like, "He has to be." And that's how he lives his life. It's this idea that it's like, I am so committed to this. This more or less is like, I will make this happen because I am so committed to making it happen because I believe in
Yeah.
it so strongly. And I think that it makes such a strong character, and
Mhm.
it plays well into the film, especially in contrast to Neo, who is doubting the entire time, who's questioning everything, who's questioning himself and his existence and why he is in this position that everyone says he's in. So
Mhm.
it provides a real pull to the character of Neo. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, what are your thoughts on Trinity as well? She plays into this in her own way, specifically in her prophecy. Do you think she's compelling?
I don't like her.
What a surprise. Okay, Andrew, what are your thoughts? Why do you say that?
I think she's interesting like leading up to it, the end, but at the point in which she becomes the true love kiss, I went, what is this garbage Maverick is showing me?
I have some
Uh,
bad news and a snack
a
for
snack
you.
for you. I was about to say that too. Uh,
Xavier, where you at?
yes. It's too bad we can't play like movie clips on this podcast. Just look up Xavier Renegade Angel. I have bad news and a snack for you.
Okay.
You won't regret it.
You will be confused though. Andrew, what are your thoughts on Trinities?
um she's good, I guess. I did not find her I didn't find her problematic until the end, at which point I felt like she was just written off as the love interest. Um and maybe that was just me getting so pissed off at the kissing him to make him come back to life scene, but that's what I got out of it. Leading up to it, I thought she was interesting. She just wasn't the character that like captivated my attention like Morpheus did.
Sure. And she's clearly the assistant role where she
Yeah.
has some level of seniority and leadership on the Nebuchadnezzar, which is the ship that everyone's on, but she doesn't necessarily lead the team per se. But at the same time, she
Yeah.
also has met with the Oracle and she has this prophecy that's helping to guide her in the same way that Morpheus has the prophecy that he was given by the Oracle, which helps guide him. And for the context, the Oracle is more or less this renegade agent in the Matrix who helps to guide the humans who are in the Matrix to help them to fight back against the AI who are now controlling all of the Matrix and the world as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets this prophecy more or less that she's going to fall in love with the chosen one. And so that's what's guiding her as she goes, wait, I'm going to fall in love with this white boy here? What on earth? And then she goes, you know what, you're right. I do love him. He looks Amazing. Wow. Oh no, he's dead. He can't die. I have to kiss him. And then he comes back to life.
But then
And
the
I think that's
question
where you
is, does
get the
she
beef.
does she really love him, or is she just convinced by the prophecy that she must love him?
She was gaslit into loving him.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The oracle
Well,
said the chosen one needs some huzz. You're gonna be it. Sorry.
well, then she should have just been in the room when he was given his prophecy, and she says, "You're not the one," and she goes, "Oh, phew, thank goodness."
Oh shoot. She's like, but
Just
he's
kidding.
so hot. Can he please be the chosen one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that her character is pretty good, even though I just said all that.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Um, I don't think that she's. I think that her. I think everything about Trinity as a character is actually quite good in regards to her being a great side character who has development. She has her own motivations, which are basically the same as Morpheus's, except it comes from more of a like she wants love in her life type situation, rather than Morpheus has this strong belief in fighting for something, and it all comes
Mhm.
to that. It all comes into a head where she ends up saying "I love you" to this guy who's dying in the Matrix, and then she kisses him. I mean, that is the one part of the film that I will agree. It's like, all right, okay, what exactly are we doing here? It's very, very Disney-esque, as you said. It's very trite, like love overcomes all things, and then that's how we win the day. So, if you can get over that and say, okay, does it make sense in the paradigm that we have that the matrix exists and that the rules can be broken? Does it make sense that someone can kiss them outside the matrix and make them come back to life? There's not really anything in the movie or the existence of it that makes that really make sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I really buy it, but like if you just accept it on its face, everything else I think is fine. So I just kind of mark it down a little bit for that and then move on. I don't know. That's the only thing that it's like I have beef with, and then I go, yeah, you're not wrong. But I don't think that makes it go like, oh, this is a terrible movie.
Took it from a 9 to a 5.5.
That's crazy.
No, I'm kidding.
Uh,
I was so pissed though, as Maverick can attest. When that
yes.
when that happened, I was like, "Oh, what the butt am I watching?"
Yeah, I mean, there you go. What are your thoughts on the well, let's before we get to the villains, because I think that Cypher has actually let's just talk about Cypher now, because he is the flip side of this. What are your thoughts on Cypher? He is a villain character, but he is taken from a similar perspective where he has been enlightened, but now he wants to be deluded again. What are your thoughts
This,
on this
this is Bald
character?
Man.
Yes.
It's interesting because I've heard the philosophical question of like, if you could live in a matrix and have the ideal life, but you knew it was fake, would you take, or like you knew it was fake going into it, but you wouldn't once you accepted it, would you like take that choice? I think most people would say no, um, because like they would prefer real, like the real existence that they're in. But I think for Cypher, it's like you still buy it because the world that he's living in isn't just like, oh, someone broke my heart, or oh, I don't have that much money, or oh, woe is me, fill in the blank. It's like the world has ended. There's like nobody around. I eat slop all day. I hate existence as a whole. Like at that point, it's like, yeah, the Matrix would be better. Living a lie would be better. Which is, I think, that is one of the reasons Neo, like learning the truth and becoming super powered, is one of the things that kind of struck me as it didn't sit right. Because you have the character of Cypher who has been enlightened, and yet his life is terrible. And so I, watching Cypher's character develop, was almost wanting Neo to come to the same point as Cypher was in terms of the realization of what reality's existence was like, but make a different decision, if that makes sense.
Sure, realize that it's all hopeless and that there's not really like what am I fighting for? It feels like a lost cause, that it's an endless roll against a relentless force.
Yes, but continuing to fight because it would be better to live in reality and die than to survive in a fake life where nothing really mattered.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think some of that also comes from the premise that I mean, keep in mind that part of this is going from the standpoint that it's not just that Neo comes to a different conclusion than Cypher does. For example, the premise is also that Neo is legitimately the chosen one. And so there is
Yeah,
inherently something unique about him as an individual compared to someone like Cypher or Trinity or even Morpheus that gives him basically a peek behind the curtain that no one else can even obtain.
sure.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of see what you're saying. Would it be interesting if he gone down that path? Sure, it would have been. Considering that they were double teaming the themes of this, going beyond just what is truth, and then also going with what do you do once you recognize something is true. I don't think they had time for that, but it definitely would have
Yeah.
probably added more value to the discussion if they had gone down that path. I'm not going to deny that. But yeah, I do think that Cypher's side tangent of what is the alternative is interesting, and it's not necessarily a strongman argument. It is in some ways ironclad in the way that they develop it. That this is a character who he has taken on the enemy. He has fought them. He has experienced the worst of what the current world is, and he decides it's not worth it. Sometimes it's better to just throw in the towel and let the enemy win. And that's Cypher's standpoint. And so it provides this contrast. It's like, is truth worth knowing? And Cypher's conclusion is no.
Yeah.
And so that's where you get the alternative to the conclusion that everyone else is coming to. And I think that's a valuable point to bring up. And so I think his character is great. In fact, if they didn't have his character in, I think it would leave a lot lacking to the film.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anyways, I do want to get to the agents and to the AI who is controlling as a whole as the enemy here. But before we do, I think there's one other character I think is worth discussing, and that is of the Oracle. What are your thoughts on the Oracle in this film?
It's Morpheus' mama. I don't know. The Oracle was weird, I'm gonna be honest. They're like a prophet, but they showed up for like one scene. And all they showed up to do was tell Neo he wasn't the chosen one.
You're gonna, never mind. I'm not gonna say it. Stay tuned for next couple of weeks, ladies and gentlemen. Um, I think the Oracle is interesting. Obviously, she doesn't show up for a ton of time, but she has a significant impact on the film. And what you see, she says to all of the characters. She said a prophecy to Morpheus that he clung to so strongly it pushed him forward into the film. Same thing for Trinity. She believes something that she was told from the Oracle so strongly that she ends up acting on it that helps save Neo by the end of the film. And also, Neo is told something that he thinks is true, that he is not the chosen one, and he acts accordingly. He believes that he is not actually significant to the survival of humanity. Because of that, he's willing to sacrifice himself so that someone who is more important than him will end up living to carry on the fight against the machines. And it all turns out that it's not that the Oracle was actually telling you a true prophecy. It's that the Oracle was telling you what you needed to hear so that you would act in the way that would be best for humanity's survival. Which is interesting because then it becomes not so much as the Oracle is a literal prophetic being, but that the Oracle is now someone who more or less plays psychology games with you to get you to do what you need to do to act and to survive. And I think that was like an interesting way to take this character and it kind of actually makes sense if you look into the idea of like an AI agent. what would they do? They probably would do things to make you psychologically induced to do the thing necessary to carry out that action, right? And so I enjoyed that aspect of it, how they twisted it. I don't know that it was a, I guess it is kind of a big part of the film, but it's I thought it was a good ad. Maybe that's all I should say about that. Do you have any further thoughts or counters to that, Andrew?
No, not really.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get into the real enemies in this story then. Let's talk about the agents. What are your thoughts on Agent Smith and the other agents that are fighting Neo and trying to stop him, trying to basically destroy humanity in their control of the universe?
I mean, aren't they all the same agent? Isn't
Are
that the
they?
point?
Technically, I mean, according to Wikipedia, they're three different agents.
Oh, well, I did not get that.
Nice. What are your thoughts on them then? Do you think that, I mean, do you think anything that they stand for has value, has interest?
AI bad guys that want to control you.
Nice. Well,
I don't know if you're trying to get at something. I mean, that in the real world they look like the necrovirus, so
sure. I mean, I think that if you look at some of the dialogue that they have, they say, I think especially Agent Smith has some interesting aspects about how he sees the role of the agents in relation to humanity and like basically chained to this responsibility that they have a directive, right? This idea that the machines are programmed to do something specific, and when like they are chained to that objective to do that thing until they are then completed that, right? And so in some ways, I think it's interesting insofar as it's a little bit of a different theme, and it's only like touched on in this one, but this idea that like humanity is chained in this fight against the machines and they are continually oppressed. And there's almost like a small sense in which you get that idea from the agents themselves, as they feel like they are forced to do this thing to fight humanity in the process. I think it's kind of like an interesting side monologue. It's not really like a big discussion, but it's an interesting one they put in there in this film. So there's not like a whole lot of nuance to them beyond that. They are the agents that are acting to destroy humanity, and that's pretty much what you get. So they're not incredibly developed, at least in this film.
Yeah.
But that's most of the characters you get. And we talked about the end, how at the very end you see that Trinity says, "I love you, smooch, smooch." Neo comes back to life and sees everything's in zeros and ones, and then is just able to put out his hand and stop bullets. So that's what you get as the climactic end, as he ends up destroying Agent Smith as he flies into him, and then the other agents realize, oh shoot, we're going to get destroyed, and they run away, and you end up having them continue on in their fight against the Matrix as they have the end scene. What are your thoughts on the conclusion of this film, the value it adds, lasting impact of this film, even? Like, what are your thoughts on this film as it ends?
I don't know that the ending as a whole was dissatisfactory, aside from what I've already said. Um, but I mean, you have Neo actually fully realizing his abilities within the Matrix, at least as far as we can tell. Um, you have him joining with these, I don't even know what they're called. They're like freedom fighters, is just what I think of them as. I don't know if they had a specific name for their group. And then like he fights off the agents and they escape from the Matrix. I mean, he doesn't at first, but then he's able to get to a phone and they summon him out. So
Yeah. Did you think it was satisfying as a conclusion to the film?
decently. I mean, I've already voiced my complaints with the stuff towards the end, so that's why it's like I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it.
Yeah. And I think that in regards to the epicness of it, sure, it's definitely above the top, makes sense in context that they were drawing inspiration from anime, but
Yeah.
it's not like I think that it was bad. It just I think this one of all of them is not my favorite. I enjoy it a lot. I think it adds a lot of value, but my favorite one is yet to come. So we'll leave that for
Interesting.
then. But I enjoy this one a lot. In regards to the lasting impact, I think there was a lot that it had that it has made an impact in our society. I mean, for one, just talking about the entire scene with Morpheus and Neo, the red pill and the blue pill. Being red
Hmm.
pilled is like a phrase you can hear in common parlance today. People will refer to it as being enlightened in any number of contexts and say, oh, this person was red pilled and they realized the truth in this regard, right? The fact that that idea being red pilled was taken from this film and has been induced into society in that way is a huge statement to this film's impact in the world. The idea that it was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by Congress in 2012 is like another statement to how big of a film it was. The fact that they made 3 more sequels, one of them like years later, speaks to how much of an impact this was. So even if it had, somewhat cheesy kung fu fight scenes or somewhat tropish I love you kiss scenes, I think it still had a huge impact. It won 4 Academy Awards when it came out. Like there was a lot of things that were going for this film when it came out, and I think that the fact that people still talk about it today, even without necessarily knowing what being red pilled means, speaks to the impact of this film. So I think that there's a lot to be said for at least what it means for us even today, even if you don't think it was the greatest film back when it came out. But I don't know if you have more to say on that, Andrew.
No, I mean, I'm interested to see where the rest of the movies go, but this movie wasn't like, I don't know. Like I guess I went in expecting more because of its notoriety and how many people had recommended I see it. Um, Whereas like personally, the enjoyment I got out of it was akin to that of like the original Tron movie. But like I don't have people hyping up the original Tron movie for me. That's not to say like this one is bad. That's just my personal level of enjoyment that I got from it, which is probably because of the fact that people hyped it up so much and I was expecting more out of it.
No, and that's fair. I mean, when someone hypes it up too much, that will definitely ruin your experience for it.
Yeah, and
That
I
being
like
said,
go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
I normally don't like when people hype movies up, I typically still go into them trying to be objective. I think the thing that made The Matrix different is like it's been years of people hyping up this film, and I just had never gotten around to watching it. Like every person I talk to is like, "Oh, this movie's so good, you need to watch it." Whereas most films, it's like some people will say it's good, some will say it's not, and I'm like, "All right, if this is universally accepted to be a really good film, then I guess I can expect something decent or like really good from it." And I did not get what I was expecting out of it.
Yeah, don't put, never put the bar all the way up here, Andrew.
Yeah,
Films aren't like that.
unless it's
You're
Attack on
not
Titan
watching Christopher Nolan.
or Attack on Titan.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that being said, everyone else liked it.
Yeah,
No, but
well, a lot of people like the Superman movie too. So,
okay, that's not a right comparison, Andrew. We both know Superman sucked.
well, my point is just that you can't say everyone liked it, therefore it's good.
Yes, no, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I
So,
don't know. It was a smashing hit in the box office. 63 million is what it cost to make, and it gained 467 million in the box office. So it was a hit back then. There's a reason it was a hit. Andrew was disappointed because you all were saying it was too good to be true. So he had like 10 out of 10 stars in his mind. And that's on him. That's not on any of us. So that's it. That's the pod. We hope you all enjoyed. We'll be back as we always are next week. We'll see you all then.